Like, yes,
Well, the second leg they had 10 men into, and they still did it. So that's one of the defining moments of 2010 when Mourinho's running down the Inter, or he's running on the Barcelona pitch, and Victor Valdez tries to stop it. I love Mourinho, man. Like, classic moment. Classic moment.
Yeah, if you want to talk about some of the most important figures of this decade of football are Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi, Jose Mourinho, Pep Guardiola, and now Jurgen Klopp. But we haven't got to Jurgen Klopp yet because it's still 2010. So we'll get to that in a bit.
That's 2010. Is there any other thing that happened in 2010 that's worth noting?
2010 was the last year Wayne Rooney was one of the top 10 players on the planet. So very famously, at the start of that year in January, Wayne Rooney finished that season, 2009-2010, with 34 goals for Manchester United. He was scoring a lot of headed goals. Antonio Valencia dropped the shoulder, crossed it in. But before he gets injured in the first leg in the quarterfinal against Bayern Munich, looks like he has an ankle injury. Looked like he'd be out for at least a month. And then apparently, as we now realize, before the second leg, Ferguson asked him, does he fancy it? Rooney went, yeah, I reckon I can run and play maybe 45 minutes. Medical staff at Manchester United told Rooney he can play, but he can only run in straight lines. And if you think about how utterly preposterous that is to tell a football player to play a Champions League game only in straight lines. Rooney plays the first half. They go a goal up. Nani gets it. It looks like maybe Fergie's going to find a way to get past his Bayern Munich side. Rooney goes off injured. And then obviously Arjen Robben scores one of the greatest goals I've ever seen scored against my football team. Amazing. United go out on away goals. Bayern Munich get to the semi-final, get to the final, lose to Inter. Bayern Munich were the second best team in Europe at the time. I think United probably weren't far off that standard, but they were relying a lot on Wayne Rooney to be incredible. But that was maybe the last we ever saw of peak Wayne Rooney, because Rooney was never the same after that ankle injury. Rooney goes to that World Cup, has a terrible World Cup. Emil Heskey went to that World Cup, let's not forget. And yeah, I think that's maybe the last we ever saw of Wayne Rooney, top 10 player in the world.
We could make the same argument for Fernando Torres.
Yeah. I think it's very fair to say that was probably the last year we ever saw of peak Fernando Torres. So Spain won that World Cup. Torres had just gone to Chelsea.
He went to Chelsea the following year. Yes. I think it was January 2011.
He was about to go to Chelsea, and I think even at that World Cup, Fernando Torres was not the world-beating player we'd seen before, because the muscle injuries were beginning to pile up.
So 2011. So we started off with Torres to Chelsea for 50 million, which might have been the most expensive signing in English football.
Correct.
So we kick it off with that. Luis Suarez goes to Liverpool, but we might touch that a little bit later. And I believe that's when Barcelona beat Manchester United in the Champions League final.
Yes, it was. So it was the part 2 of that, the Champions League final in Wembley this time, and it was a procession. This one, I remember watching that final. I was working as a bartender, and the game was on behind me. I was just watching Barcelona absolutely tear at Manchester United. Well, notable things: Dimitar Berbatov didn't start that final. Wayne Rooney got a goal to bring it to 1-1, but that was about it. Rio Ferdinand talked about that final in depth recently, about how Sergio Busquets used to basically shit talk the entire game. And basically, Englander, terrible Englander, you don't know what you're doing. We're so much better than you. And Rio's like, yeah, safe. Okay. And also, I think there was comments from him and Nemanja Vidic about how the plan was to try and beat up Messi, but they couldn't get close to him. They said we couldn't grab his shirt. He was so much better. David Villa was incredible as well, and also Pedro scored. The front three of Pedro, David Villa, and Messi, all three scored. And isn't it cool that Pedro scored in the 2011 Champions League final, and he's still kind of scoring for Chelsea now?
Not quite, man. It's over. It's over for this man.
Sorry.
I'm trying to think of what else happened in 2012 then, or 2011. Sorry.
Manchester United won that league.
Yep.
Yes, they did. So the theory, the long-standing theory for a lot of fans was basically that Champions League final and Ferguson seeing how big the gap was between his Manchester United side that won the league and Barcelona, was Ferguson quietly going, you know what? I'm probably going to have to retire soon. I'm not going to be able to win another Champions League, really.
That was the last time you guys were in a Champions League final, no?
Yes, it was. And obviously we can't understate this was also the beginning of the rise of Manchester City.
Yep.
So around about this time, City had just begun to crash into the Champions League spaces. Had just begun to get past Spurs in that battle for fourth and assert themselves as a Champions League team.
I'm trying to look up who they bought in 2011. Who did they buy? They bought Aguero that year. 40 million. They act like he was cheap. 40 million in 2011. That's a lot of money.
That was a lot of money, and he scored a brace, I think, immediately in his debut against Swansea.
16 Aguero is more scary than number 10 Aguero. The same way number 17 Hazard is more scary than number 10. But let's get it here.
You a Kobe 8 or a Kobe 24?
I'm a Kobe 8.
Yeah, fair play. All right,
but that's because I was a little kid at the time. So that's when like Kobe and Vince Carter had the little rivalry. So I didn't really mess with number 8 Kobe at all. 2010 was the season where they spent all the money. All of these transfers are hits. They bought 7 players. Boateng didn't work out, but the idea that you buy him from Hamburg for 10 million, check mark. Yaya Toure, 24 million, check mark. David Silva, 24, check mark. Kolarov, Lazio, 16, check mark. Balotelli, but kinda. So 24 million, check mark. James Milner from Aston Villa, 18 million. I'll give you a check for that. And Edin Dzeko, 27 million from Wolfsburg in January of 2011. Check mark. Whoever ran their transfers in 2010, 2011, like, give them a raise. I'm sure they're well paid. But, yeah. Then we get to 2012. And, Chelsea won the Champions League. That has to be one of the 2011, 2012 is like the peak as a football fan for me, I think. Every leg I had doubt. Well, tell a lie. Every round except Benfica. Every other one, I wasn't sure. The Napoli leg in the round of 16, it was Benfica in the quarterfinal. Then you get the tie with Barcelona in the semifinal. Just how that went with John Terry getting the red card in the second leg and Busquets scoring. I'm forgetting who scored the other goal. Was it Fabregas who scored the other goal? No, it was Iniesta. And they go up on aggregate, and then they have an extra man. And then right before halftime, Lampard puts the ball through to Ramirez. Ramirez chips Valdez. I'm going crazy. Halftime. And then it's just an onslaught, and Messi hits the bar. He misses a penalty. And then, for whatever reason, Di Matteo decides, let's take off Drogba and let's put on Torres. And I'm like, nah, not this guy, man. I don't want this guy. He comes on. Chelsea are down to 10 men. Barcelona have the ball for at least 85% of that match. Ashley Cole kicks it deep. And the way that you're watching it on television, you're like, okay, Valdez is going to get this and the ball's going to come back. But for whatever reason, Fernando Torres decides, I'm just going to stand up here. So Cole kicks it, and you see this white shirt. And you're like, whoa, what's going on? And Torres collects the ball, and there's so much time that you're thinking, oh, God, that he's going to miss. So he has the ball, he rounds Valdez, and you're like, Jesus Christ. If you exist, let this man score, because an open goal isn't good enough for Torres in that moment. You're still not sure whether he can score. He puts it in, and yeah, people went crazy. It's still the most overrated goal it's the most overrated goal of the decade. I know you hate the word overrated, but it is what it is, because Chelsea were going through without that. But just the moment was pretty good. And then the final, man, the hour of Didier Drogba, it's a really good story. What was your thoughts watching that whole Champions League run from Chelsea? It's one of the most incredible things that happens in the decade. Maybe Leicester winning the Premier League, but all the other Champions League winners, you would think, all right, that makes sense. Chelsea, I mean, that Chelsea team winning.
It was an absolute rebellion, wasn't it? It absolute rebellion from the dressing room, removing AVB, which I think sort of kind of gets forgotten that Villas-Boas was once the Chelsea manager and was swiftly ejected. How they looked like they weren't even going to get out of the group stages until Di Matteo